Well, welcome everybody to our May Lunch and Learn. Today we are going to be talking on the topic of resiliency. And we do have a little bit of switch in what was PR'd in our magazine and on our website. Is we had one guest speaker, and unfortunately due to health issues she could not join us today. So instead we are bringing you four guest speakers. We have a panel presentation of our own participants through Cancer Support Community Central Ohio, and we're very excited that Maureen Cohinger and Pete Granger and Cheryl Eddy and Pat Belmont are going to be sharing a little bit of their story, and they're going to be talking about how they have been able to move forward and have a life of resiliency. And so I am going to turn it over to our panel presentation. Whoever would like to go first, you are more than welcome. And if nobody chooses to go first, I'll pick on somebody.
Well, does somebody want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. I never really thought of myself as resilient until I looked up the actual definition this morning. And it says the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, the ability to spring back, capable of withstanding shock without permanent damage, and adjust easily to misfortune or change. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I am. I just hadn't really put that into a physical description of what I was. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it was 13 years a warrior this January. I was surprised, shocked, but I wasn't surprised or shocked because for some reason I always knew if I ever got cancer, it was going to be breast cancer, even though there was no history on either side of my families. But at the same time, when I was diagnosed, I knew I was going to be fine. I just had this deep inner faith that everything was going to work out the way it was supposed to work out. My husband, on the other hand, it hit him really hard and it took him a little while. And we didn't know about CSC then. And having a support system for caregivers would have been especially helpful for him. But he had friends and support and we talked and that helped. And then I was looking as far as how things went. And I realized I was very blessed all the way through my treatment. I did chemo and then surgery and then radiation. And I had a lumpectomy and I worked the entire time. I never was off sick. I found out that you can gain weight with breast cancer and I gained like 35 pounds. So that was probably my only downfall that is still hanging around, but hey, you know, worse things happen. But I just had this inner strength that you looked for that you didn't always know that was there. But when you find that inner light and that inner faith and you trust your intuition, to me, that's where the resiliency comes in, because you have to have a good attitude no matter how bad things are. And we all have different journeys. Keeping a positive attitude is half the battle. And that sounds very trite, but it truly is half the battle, because positivity feeds on positivity and it grows. And your body responds to that in a positive way, as much as negativity will feed on negativity and you will find yourself spiraling downward. So that's where I'll start, and then I will pass it along.
Okay, I'll jump in. Okay, I'm Pete Granger, and I was diagnosed with diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, stage 4 in May of 2016, and had R-CHOP chemo for 6 months. And then in October of 19, I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma. I had a chest wall tumor, but they were able to use radiation on that. So that was, we took care of that too. Resiliency is to me a relative thing. And when I look at it two ways. if in a big picture, it's kind of a sum of your everyday attempt to be resilient. And when you look at your overall resilience to being able to react to all this change, you look at it, I look at it that, wow, I'm doing better than I thought I was. Because maybe on a daily basis, it's difficult. But when I look at over time and things I've been able to, do, then I feel like, well, I am making some progress. I'm bouncing back, and I can be that rubber ball that comes back into shape, after you get some news you don't want. And I also gather a lot of strength from the people I see through cancer support community, and someone who's a true warrior like Cheryl. Cheryl, I think about you all the time, and with everyone there to just know that we support each other. And given all the things that have gone on in the last year, that's really important, because we're living under a different set of rules than the rules they keep announcing on the television of you can do this now and you can do that now. But there's a lot of things that we still can't do now. If you've had chemo, you're immune compromised. And they don't really know. And no one's going to sit there and give you a percentage of saying, well, in this age of numbers where everybody have numbers every day, that you're 80% good if you had chemo 4 years ago. Well, I don't know that. And so there's lots of things I'd still like to be doing that I'm not doing. And so that's part of the daily part that I don't really feel I'm very resilient with. But yet, as I look back, the more events that I missed and everything else, and look at the greater good of, okay, I didn't get COVID and I'm vaccinated and I'm making progress with all these things, then I feel like, well, that's good. So it's a scale that I go up and down with a lot. So I'll pass the ball now.
I think that that's perfectly said, Pete, that it is a scale that goes back and forth, because there's days when those thoughts creep in, and then, I keep getting a little new discoveries made on my latest thing is I have a new genetic thing that popped up. So as far as increased risk for another cancer. So it's like, I agreed to be part of this research study for prevention of endometrial cancer. My gynecological oncologist asked me to participate because I was already maybe a year or two out post endometrial cancer. That was I guess October 2018, after I had breast cancer in 2014, which featured lumpectomy, chemo, radiation. And like Pat, I was able to keep working. And for me, that was important, to keep life as normal as possible. And also at the time of the breast cancer, my son was, I think 7 or 8. I think he was 8 when I was diagnosed. So as a mom of a younger child, I really wanted to keep things normal as possible. Like, I don't have an option. Like, this isn't going to stop me. So I had to make that click in my mind. Like, those first few days of crying in private with my husband, not in front of my son, because I didn't want to worry him. Was there lots of tears? Absolutely, because it's fear, it's unknown. But you know, then I'd like, you know what, click, I'm like, I switch, I turned a switch in my mind, and I thought, nope, whatever it is, I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna, you know, I'm just gonna do it. And like Pat said, you don't know that you're resilient until you have to be resilient. So you've got to make that choice to move forward, stay positive. Like Pat said, that is a huge factor. And some of the things I wrote down, some of the things like that helped me was, like, for example, I had to switch my mindset, and Qigong helped me with this as well, because we learned that everything is Qi, or energy, or universal energy. And so I switched that in my mind from away from that thinking, because you're going to run into a lot of people like, oh, well, chemo is going to poison you. You know, chemo is this negative thing and you'll never recover. You know, you never be yourself again. It's poisonous. You're putting poison in your body. You're going to get all sorts of that. So I said, you know what? No, chemo can be energy too. Chemo is made from things that come, you know, are elemental, things that are part of the earth. So chemo is, you know, I made that switch in my mind. It's not poison. It's a healing water. It's a healing element, and it's going to target. In my mind, I would do that every time I had to have chemo. It's targeting the cells it needs to target. It's not going to harm the good cells. It's going to target what it needs to target. And I would just sit there, and while I'm getting chemo, of course, my husband would be sitting there too, but I would bring headphones and I would watch funny things. And I would watch Jimmy Fallon. And I mean, I'd be sitting there and I'd be cracking up all during chemo, you know, which, as many of you know, is a long full day process. So, you know, and it's hard to sit there and see everyone else struggling and receiving their chemo. It absolutely is hard. But all you can do is basically create your protective bubble in your own mind, that what you are receiving in chemo and the treatments you are receiving are the appropriate treatments, and they're going to do what they need to do. And in your mind, you know, repeat to yourself, there will be no ill effects. It's going to go where it needs to go. So that's kind of what I did. So surrounding yourself with people that make you laugh, watching funny videos. Laughter is so key. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, there's times that I could have cried, and the only real time I cried was when I shaved my head before, and that was just me and my husband. But after that, you know, I was like, all right, warrior mode is activated. And you know, I could have cried when I was trying to draw eyebrows on my face, but instead I found that to be the funniest thing I could have ever seen, because I mean, I couldn't get it right to save my life, literally. But you know, so I just sat and laughed in the mirror, and then I went out and told my husband, I said, take a look at these. But so finding the little things that can be hilarious in cancer, finding the humor even amidst the unknown, that's how I got through it. And the same thing with radiation that followed. You know, that actually, radiation was a little bit harder for me than chemo, because with chemo I had the high dose chemo, so I had 2 weeks in between to like not feel like a patient. I could just go back to work, and I could you know, be myself. And it was 2 weeks before I had to sit in a chair again. With radiation, it was a little bit more difficult, because every day you're laying on the slab, and you can't move, and you're getting radiated. And it's like every day you're reminded, for that, even though it's a brief session, you're reminded, hey, you're a cancer patient. So mentally that is a little challenging. But again, you just start checking off those days, you know, how many days are left? Check. And always try, try to smile through the pain. And you just keep moving forward. And once,
It's a choice.
I got through all that, and you still deal with some of the effects. I think Irene needs to mute. Hey, Irene, can you mute?
Voila. What's that?
Can you mute your computer? Thanks. So, I got through it. I got through the breast cancer, and really, you go through and your hair grows back and it takes forever, and you have to come up with weird ways to do your hair to kind of make it, look somewhat presentable as the back part is growing in and the front part's not. But again, you just have fun. I mean, you just have to find it funny, really. But, and then you have to keep going to the checkups. And we all know that when we go for checkups, it's nerve-wracking. It's all those feelings come flooding back in. Here I am at this oncologist office again, and it's not a good feeling to, I do think there is PTSD associated with cancer and all the visits that follow. It's just, you're just reminded. So Qigong, helps again with that, because you try and just take a deep breath and try and meditate while you're just sitting there. The worst part is when you're sitting in the room and just sitting there and waiting to hear the doctor's footsteps. It's like an animal at the vet, how scared they are before the vet comes in. But use those moments to kind of go inward and focus on your breathing, and just remind yourself that you've come this far, and the doctors are there and they're going to catch anything else that pops up, and you'll handle what else is thrown at you. And so, I went along and everything was fine. And 4 years later, I got a surprise in 2018 that appeared in the form of endometrial cancer. And that completely threw me for a loop, because you assume you're worried about a breast cancer recurrence. You never think that you're going to have something else. So, again, that was like, really? But, and absolutely, you're going to have those why me moments. But then you have to, again, make that switch. And in my mind, I'm like, well, why not me? Because,
Exactly.
yeah, Pat knows, because it's like, well, we know we're strong because we've made it this far. So why not me? Why not me, I've proven to myself how strong I am. So who better to have to do this again? Again. But it's hard. It's hard to hear that news again. Thankfully, mine was early stage. So the hysterectomy and ovary removal got everything was well contained. So now we just, we move forward and we do our 6-month checkups, and you just hope, it's hard not to like obsess over your lab work and think, oh, well, I see this number's out, and this number's a little weird, are they sure that's okay? And so it is hard to kind of stop obsessing about it. But again, I ask those questions when I see the lab work. I say, well, what about this? What about this? And they have the knowledge, so they're able to tell me, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, but it's normal after chemo for this to be out of whack. And then, like I said, yet another little surprise. Then I'm like, sure, I'll do this research study and I'll help other people. And it offered genetic testing. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll do that, because I had already done genetic testing when I had breast cancer and I was negative for like 27 different things. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll do it, because I'm sure everything will be negative again. Well, of course, those gene genetic things go, as we all know, new things are being discovered all the time. So I got this call and she wanted me to call her right back. And I'm like, we all know when they want you to call them right back. We all know. So I called and she said, well, they found, there's some little variant in this gene, and it was just discovered in 2018, and it puts you at increased risk for breast, endometrial, and colon cancer. And I said, well, I already had 2 of the 3, so don't have to worry about that. And she said, yeah, it's really not going to change much other than you're going to need to get colon screenings more frequently. So that's the latest thing I get to do on Monday is my first colonoscopy. So fun times. But but again, I have no symptoms, so I'm not concerned. And I guess they say knowledge is power. So at least we know, and if something is found, it's, it can be effectively treated early. So but am I happy that I have some sort of weird genetic thing? Absolutely not. I'm not happy. And especially because I have my son and I have a sister. And so now that means my sister is probably going to have to get testing, and and my parents have some guilt because they ended up both being carriers of this recessive gene, which is incredibly rare. And so they're dealing with that because they had to be tested as well. And, but I'm telling them, it's just what it is. It's not your fault. It's a random thing, and it's just something that they've discovered recently, and there's going to be more and more discoveries. And, but I'm sure internally they're feeling kind of bad. But, all we can do is keep, like I said, just keep moving forward and try to stay positive, try to find the humor in things. And I don't know. I guess that's all I've got. I'm trying to think what else I wrote down. Oh, couple other things that helped me was, one was that I visualized my tumors. So I would visualize my tumor, my breast tumor, my endometrial cancer tumor, and I visualized it. And for me, what I did when I visualized, I imagined it being removed, whether it be ripped out or cut out or whatever works for you in your visualization. And then I just, in my mind, like I threw it in a trash bin and I set it on fire. So for me, it was just like visualizing that destruction of that tumor and obliterating it with fire or whatever else. That visualization kind of gave me some power over it, that, hey, this is going to get taken out and this is going to be forever gone. So that was one thing that helped me. Another thing that helped was, and I still do this, I try to, whether it be in prayer form or however you want to do it, I'll just say a quick, even if it's just to myself in the car while I'm driving, I'll just do a quick, at least once a day, I'll just do a quick gratitude check, and I'll just say to myself, thank you for another day. Thank you for another day on this earth. Thank you for, my family. Thank you for everything, all the beauty in the earth. And so it's just that little bit of taking that time to be grateful for each and every day that we get to have. That also helps your mindset to move into a mindset of gratitude, and again, resilience as well. So I've prattled on for way too long. So Cheryl, if you want to, we'll move it over to Cheryl.
Okay, well, the fun thing about going last is can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Unfortunately, the bribes are no longer working and the birds are out. And,
I love seeing the birds.
They are chatting away. The one thing about going last is pretty much everybody's said everything I was going to say, so I'm done. No. When I was first diagnosed, I found out that I was not nearly as strong as I thought I was. And at the same time, I was stronger than I ever thought I could be. It was kind of like back and forth, back and forth. I was pretty much one of those people that lived my life in my head, just the jobs that I had had and that. At the time I was diagnosed, I was a programmer. So my life was just 2 monitor screens or 3 monitor screens and a couple of computers. And, you know, they were extension of my body. It wasn't, you know, the other stuff. If it wasn't for my head, I really didn't need a body. But over about 72 hours, that little attitude just changed in a heartbeat. Did a 180. I also found out that this is one of those things I didn't dare do alone. I think that's where a lot of the resiliency started to come in. It's just that I got a good medical team somehow. I could ask all kinds of questions and they listened to everything, learned what to expect and so on and so forth. Had lots of help from friends and family. And I learned to ask for help. That was a new thing actually, because I was always the one that, you know, people asked me, not the other way around, because I was the big girl. But and then just learned to accept help from other people. People just had some amazing creative ways to help that I wouldn't have thought that I needed or wanted, but then, yeah, that's a good idea. I end up saying thank you a lot more times than I ever had to say please. It was just kind of worked out quite nicely that way. Or wonderfully. Pretty much, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in August 2011. And I kind of took the same path that Maureen did. Except I only went 3 years. And I ended up with endometrial cancer and then had to do so I had started out with the chemo, the surgery, the radiation. And I liked your visualization. I didn't really do that during chemo or their surgery, but during radiation, I watched Star Trek way too much. And there's actually a little linear accelerator thing going on with the radiation, with the external beam and that. So I just imagined everybody, all the tumor cells, look, you're in the wrong universe, the wrong galaxy, whatever, get in your escape pods and get out.
Yeah.
And that's the way I figured, that they were just all getting into their little escape pods. So I didn't have to kill them if they got out on time. So it took 7 weeks, but they all got out. And as it turned out, a year after the hysterectomy, I actually had the breast cancer recurred. So that's why I'm sporting the cap and that. I've been about 5.5 years dealing with that.
Yeah.
So that's actually going fairly well. I have to be careful not to get too complacent, but yeah, I do the same thing. I go back for spot welding on, for radiation, in the spine or femur or wherever it wants to show up this time. And it the same thing. I used so many escape pods getting those critters out. But yeah, I learned a lot about self-care. That I went from, if I could get 5 hours of sleep a night, I was golden, to yeah, when they say 7 to 9, they're not kidding. So, and I also learned about relaxing, that a lot of things count as relaxation, but of course, the meditation, journaling. I liked your ideas about gratitude. A lot of journaling. I do a lot of free writing. I've gotten writing prompts. There's a lovely lady she's in Canada now, that has something called Writing for Cancer. And about once a week, she'll come up with a prompt, or she'll send out an email with a prompt. So I do a lot of that. And of course, my reading and that. But kind of what I found out about self-care is it's really not the bubble bath and butterfly thing that they're talking about. It's like silly things like hydration, like, especially if you're going through active treatment or if you're just doing the exercise, they're very active in that, they're talking 2 to 3 quarts of water a day, not the little 8 glasses, you're not have to really. So I have a sippy cup with me all the time, being physically, and then I actually learned to recognize the signs of dehydration. Oh, is that what that was? After I'm in the emergency room in the hospital, it's like, oops. So it's like, yeah, oh, okay. So if your cheeks start sticking to your teeth, then you have a problem. The nourishment I get to watch out for. I'm not on any particular diet. I'm not, gluten-free or anything like that, but I find I'm a lot more self-aware of how my body feels when I do certain things, eat certain things. I sneak a carrot into my smoothies and that sort of thing. Sorry about the birdie. She just likes her attention. They're Velcro pets. So there's a hydration, the nourishment. No matter how tired I think I am or how, fatigued I think I have, I still get to exercise. That doesn't excuse me from, now I'm not training for marathons or anything. We're talking about, taking the little white bag of trash out to the dumpster and back. But just to find excuses to get up and move. I actually set a timer so that I'm not sitting for more than an hour at a time, because otherwise I could zone out, for 8 or 10 hours. And just because that's what I was doing when I was programming, you get in the zone and keep going, and there you are. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's kind of like that's sort of the self-care aspect was just the hydration, the nourishment, the exercise, and the rest. Just taking care of myself physically seems to do a lot for me being able to bounce along. I'm not sure what bounce back looks like because, things have changed for me, but I'm certainly bouncing. I have days where it's like I'm fighting gravity, and then there's days where I'm almost euphoric. And so I know that, and it's fortunately learned that if I go crazy on the days that I'm euphoric, it doesn't really affect how I'm going to feel on any other day. I just keep going, take advantage of it. And just kind of being self-aware enough to know when these things are happening and learn to ride with them. I like the idea that it's about humor. Some of my humor gets a little dark, but it still counts. I did my endometrial cancer was well contained, but it was a grade 2. So I ended up having to have radiation. And it was a different thing. It was kind of more of a direct application. And so we were kind of joking. I was about the magic tampon. It was just like, really, we're going to do that?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So that's about all I have to say.
Well, thank you to our panel. We greatly appreciate you guys sharing. We will open this up for question and answer to our 4 panelists. And then I also have a document that I want to share that Pete had shared with me that, but I thought that to keep it relevant, if anybody had any questions for Maureen, Pete, Cheryl, or Pat, now we can ask those questions, or if not, then I can pull up that article and we can go over that article as well. I don't see anybody unmuting themselves to ask, so let me do a screen share here. Let me find my article back. Okay, is everybody seeing the 7 skills of resilience?
Yes,
Okay. Perfect.
see it.
So I do appreciate and want to thank Pete for sending me this article. This is from Psychology Today. And what I'll do is I will forward this link to everybody, so you'll have access to this article. The person who presented this, she is a psychologist, it looks like, a therapist. But there's the first principle was cultivating a belief in your ability to cope. And then staying connected with sources of support. And then the third one was talk about what you're going through. And then the fourth principle is be helpful to others. The fifth principle is activate positive emotion. And then 6 is cultivate an attitude of survivorship. And then 7 is seek meaning. And Catherine King is an associate professor of psychology at William James College. What I think is great is that all of our presenters hit on all 7 of those topics, and it was only Pete who had seen this article before he sent it to me. That belief in your ability to cope, and the stay connected with sources of support. The support groups that we have, the being able to connect with other survivors, caregivers, other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through is just really wonderful options. And then again, that talking through and being helpful to others just gives you that feeling and that positive emotion. I can't remember, and I do apologize for my poor memory. But I think it might have been Maureen and then Cheryl who talked about humor and how laughing. Yes, it was Maureen who was sharing about, pulling up the Jimmy Kimmel, who is hilarious because, laughter releases the feel-good hormones.
Yep.
And exercise, Pat does a wonderful workout with friends class every Tuesday at 11. And so getting your physical activity and getting that physical activity is really important. So I will share that article with everybody. I will definitely email that link that you guys can read that article more in depth.
That's great, Darlene. I think the 7th one, the seeking meaning, is definitely the one that's hardest. I guess in the terms of what is the meaning of this? Why, what am I supposed to learn?
Not always what you're supposed to learn. It's what you're supposed to teach and share.
Right. And that's that's exactly right. So, the meaning part is hard at first. And then, I think you're right, Pat. It's like, even at my son's school, I become like the kind of go-to person to ask when somebody else is, stricken with some sort of cancer, among mothers and, sisters of classmates' moms. And so, anything I can do to help, calm their fears. And I guess with my survivorship story and Pat and everybody's survivorship story, I'm happy to do, and that it does make you feel, it does help you feel stronger because, hey, I'm here. I can share my story. I can give hope to other people. So
I could add one thing. In that article, a lot of it, when the time it was written, was geared to the initial phase of COVID-19. So I think addressing a general audience. But I think we as a group, as cancer survivors, can take this one more level that other people might not understand. And those principles are something that we're all dealing with all the time. And
yes.
We're not going to get a note from Dr. Fauci saying you don't have to do this anymore or something like that. It doesn't work that way for us.
Yeah.
So, just wanted to add that to it. If you're reading it and you see the references to COVID, add in the topic of cancer and feel special. If we can feel special about it, if we like.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's when I read a little article where they were talking about all the masking and precautions and being isolated and so forth. And if somebody else, like they were a cancer patient and they're just like, well, welcome to my world.
Mhm.
Yes.
I just wanted to add that with what Cheryl said with self-care, a lot of it is just self-love. We don't always love ourselves enough and give ourselves that reinforcement that we're worthy, and that gratitude is a great attitude.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I know with several of you having a second diagnosis, I also had a second I'm also almost 2 years free of uterine cancer.
That's right. We were about the same time. Yep.
When my gynecologist oncologist, that's a big mouthful, said, you have cancer, and I'm just like, okay, and they're looking at me like, what?
Yeah.
Once you've had it once, you
Mhm.
you deal with it, and you will just handle it and move on. And they're just like, okay, that's not the reaction we usually get. I think again that just comes from my faith. I know that this is going to be fine, that we will get through this. And your body follows your mind's intention. We learned that in Qigong. And if you want your body to be well, it will do its very best to help you. And sometimes we have to get out of its way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a comment. I went to the James and I saw a geriatric oncologist for lung cancer. And this was about 2.5 years ago. They started a program and they use the term resiliency all the time in these programs. And they had been doing the resiliency program in older adults with people that had blood cancers, various ones. And I was the first one 2.5 years ago to go through it with the lung cancer program. And it is kind of interesting. You go into one room and they bring in 5 or 6 specialists to check various areas. And it made me realize, well, maybe I better look at other issues like my sleep issues. Because when you have cancer, you ignore everything else. We'll just do the cancer. That's the important thing. It doesn't matter that you can't sleep. It doesn't matter that you have arthritis. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter that you have balance problems. Well, they had all these people come in and check these other things. So the idea, if you're going to survive cancer, then you better treat the rest of the things and not ignore them. So I
That's a
thought that
good
was
point.
a really excellent program. And my oncologist, I think she was the one that brought that into the lung cancer program. It wasn't currently, no, it may probably used in other programs now.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting if anybody's interested in going through that program. I don't know what it takes to get into the program, whether you have to have a certain stage of lung cancer, whether you have to be at the James or what the issue is. But as far as I know, everything was covered by insurance or Medicare. So it wasn't anything extra. So I assume that they're probably trying to do that with all of their, and I don't really know what the definition of geriatric is. How old you have to be for that? When they have to be
Right.
50 and above. I'd have to look it up. It's online. If you want to check it, you can just check into that program.
That's a great point. Yeah. But you're so focused on the cancer, and really you need to look at your whole,
Right.
make sure everything else is working well.
And you don't really consider that once you get the cancer over.
Right.
When you're
Right.
over the treatment and everything, that's when you can say, well, now I can start looking at other things.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions for either the whole group or our panelists?
I just want to thank everybody. It's been very helpful to me. And this geriatric thing, that's a good one to know. I just had 3 biopsies in my neck, but I had cancer in 2008, breast cancer, and I had a mastectomy. And then the thing that's been the hardest for me, we talk about sleep, and that's one thing. I'm 78 years old, but the other thing is the lymphedema.
Mhm.
I got that about 6 years ago, and it's into my abdomen. And when it gets into my abdomen, then I can't eat.
Mm.
And so it's interesting, but my family doctor agreed um, with some research and so forth that I could take charcoal. It's a,
Oh.
it's in
Yeah.
a bottle, and they give it to people that have overdosed on drugs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, like if you have 7 or 8 teaspoons or tablespoons of something, sometimes that's too much. Um, but you can have up to 16 a day um, of these pills, and they're just over the counter. And I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years with her approval. I'm starting to need a few more than I try to do like one after I eat about 10 times a day because it's such small amounts. But anyway, that seems to be working for me. And so, I mean, who knows? And with the biopsies in my neck, it's a salivary, well, I guess that's what you call it. It's a saliva gland. That's what I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
And after they did the 3 biopsies, they kept going deeper. And I told the radiologist, I said, well, 3 strikes and you're out. And so he laughed, and so then, but then it turned out that they could just get pieces around it because of this adipose tissue or something.
Mhm.
So basically, then I said, well, then why would I, want to have surgery on that? Because they'd have to remove the whole gland, and it might not be malignant because these little pieces all around that they got weren't malignant. So then he said, well, that's a good point. So he said, if you can't swallow, come back. And I said, well, I would certainly do that. So anyway, that's the humor, there's
Yeah.
some kind of humor in it.
That's like we're talking about humor. When my hair started growing back and I was still working, I would have people pat my head and go, "Oh, you have baby hair." I mean, perfect strangers come up like like you pat pregnant women's belly, and they would just pat my head, and I'm looking at them like, "Really?" And it was the
Oh,
first time
boundaries.
first time you put makeup on, like Maureen said, and I put it on, and then I put my scarf on, and I went, "Whoa, am I ready?" I had clown makeup on. Let's wash that off, start over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Realizing
Yeah.
you get on a hairline for how much makeup you put on.
Yeah. Karen, that's interesting about the lymphedema and the charcoal. Now, I've never been to it, but I think the Bing at Ohio Health supposedly has a lymphedema clinic.
Yes.
Yeah, I've not been to it, but
Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
mm,
About 5 years ago, I went to it in Marion, Ohio, because I live in
okay.
Delaware, Ohio. Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's exercises, and then they give you a bodysuit too, which if it really
Oh,
gets bad, then I wear a bodysuit.
okay.
It's hard to get it on, it's hard to get it off. But,
Yeah, compression.
yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
So what is this charcoal? It's absorbing toxins primarily. I'm a chemical engineer, so it's absorbing toxins. So what is it absorbing with the lymphedema? I'm trying to understand that.
Well, all I can say is that it helps me to eat. It helps me to eliminate. Okay.
Okay.
So it
Otherwise,
must
Wow,
absorb the lymph fluid.
Does
Yeah.
that
That's
make sense?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it is.
And
Maybe it is a lymph fluid that it's absorbing.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
And if you massage, like Maureen was mentioning, if you
Uh-huh.
go to that lymphedema, it was called occupational therapy, I think it was. Anyway,
Okay.
in Marion, you can move it around. So in the warmer weather, it seems to go to my legs.
Okay.
But throughout the year, it's either in the abdomen or up and through here, all through here.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
understand it. I didn't realize there were that many lymph glands. Trust
Oh,
me.
they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Th-
So,
Karen, did you have a lot of lymph nodes removed when you had breast cancer then?
no. And
Really?
that's the interesting part. It took 5 or 6 years before this started to show up.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, I think I just had 2, but I think
Hmm.
I was stage 3 and grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
That was when they were doing grades. And,
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but that's a
Yeah.
lot of years. That's 13 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is lymph?
I had breast cancer it's almost 26 years ago.
okay.
And
Oh,
at
good for
that
you.
time, they were hardly doing, they didn't know anything. So basically, I think they removed all my lymph nodes,
Oh, wow.
but on the one side, of course, but I'm really at risk for lymphedema anytime. It can go 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah. So
Right.
you still
So,
can't have your blood pressure checked on that side, right?
right. And then
Yep.
Right.
I'm more
Yeah.
careful. If I get a cut on that side, the antibiotic goes on right away. If I get
Yeah.
a cut on the other arm, forget about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to be careful because they don't know what causes it really,
Yeah.
lymphedema.
Yep.
Right. Well, and that's true because you mentioned about I have antibiotic cream because if you even get
Right.
like a little, a hangnail or anything, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm. Have you ever had a second opinion on that at all, Karen? Anywhere else? On your
on the
treatment?
lymphedema,
Yeah.
no. I just stuck with Delaware
Okay.
and stuck with my surgeon. He had done my gallbladder and some other things.
Yeah.
So
What
I'm
is
just
I
lymph?
I'm
figured,
a real proponent of the James, so that's kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
really
I can
big on it.
I can understand that, but since I live in Delaware,
That's not that far away.
yeah, it works for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Teresa, were you asking what is lymphedema?
Yeah.
Karen can probably answer that, but basically my understanding is it's a buildup of the lymphatic fluid that is not draining properly.
Right.
And it can occur anywhere because your lymphatic system is all over your body. There's little bunches of lymph nodes all over. That's a whole network. And the lymphatic system is responsible for flushing your system of like toxins, infections, cancer. It's, they're supposed to, because we all have, what I've heard is we all have basically potential cancer cells or floating around our body at all time. And our body does a good job of blocking them from aggregating together and creating something. And the lymphatic system is part of that. So the lymphatic system, like I believe, contains like white blood cells, all the fighter cells. And so sometimes when lymph nodes are removed, or in Karen's case, even when there's not that many removed, for whatever reason, lymphatic fluid can decide to build up because it doesn't drain properly. So that's why there's things like the massage, like Karen was talking about, to try and move that lymphatic fluid out. So
So
Yeah,
is that what swelling is?
the massaging really helps. I have a handheld massager. Now for this lump on my neck, this gland, obviously I'm not going to put an electric thing up there and go.
no.
Yeah. Hope not.
But I can use my finger, so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
So,
Teresa,
yeah.
the main thing that happens, I know, with breast cancer is your arm will swell. Now, with other
Yeah.
cancers, it could be your leg. So your arm could turn out to be twice the size of your arm.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's no treatment for that. The treatment is, as you said, the massage,
Compression.
and wearing compression, and they try a number of things, but since they don't exactly know what causes it, they really are still, it's trial and error with the treatment too.
Yeah, so the swelling is
you have
the,
you have a compression for your arm, also the
Right.
gauntlet for your hand, because this is where breast was removed over here. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
yeah, but Teresa, that is what the fluid is. So, I do have one friend that I think last year I guess her lymphedema was so bad and she had it in both arms.
Oh my.
And she's, I think about my age, 40, well, she's, I think 44, 45. And I think she went to the James, yeah, she did go to the James and she did have some sort of surgery. And I think it's worked out
Yeah.
well because I think they do have surgical options now. And I don't know exactly what
Yeah,
that entails.
it's like microsurgery where they would reattach your hand or finger. They
Right.
go in
Okay.
and they reconstruct the lymph system where it's compromised around the
Oh,
nose.
okay.
And it's very similar. They just started doing that last couple of years. And as I said, I think the James does it, but I doubt if very many other places will do that.
Yeah. I think it's worked out for her, but
Really? Yeah.
yeah.
and Patricia Neff put in the chat that she had heard that rebounders can be helpful.
What are rebounders?
I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
Patricia, can you share what rebounders are? I'll have to look. I'd
Well,
have to,
mini trampolines
Oh, I see.
Oh,
to keep your fluid moving through your body. A lot of people use them for that.
And your lymphatic fluid flows in as opposed to blood flows out. So, bringing it in and bringing it up is what you want to do with movement to keep your lymphatic fluid moving.
Okay. I don't think I'd try that if I had balance issues, which I do.
well, I know that Pat does address some of her movements in the Workout with Friends on Tuesday morning. I know she addresses that issue because I hear her saying it. So, well, we
My legs and feet still swell a lot.
Sorry?
I said my legs and feet still swell a lot. And I remember from an old yoga class,
Oh, yeah.
at the end, they would have us lay on our backs with our feet up against the wall for like 5 minutes.
yep.
to help
Did
with
you
the
have lymph nodes removed with yours, Teresa? Did they
No.
take out lymph nodes? No. Okay.
No. You know, when I asked him what stage it was, the doctor put his face close to mine and said, "You don't need to know."
I'd find
And so
another
I kept
doctor.
asking. So finally, I tricked a nurse into telling me. I told her, I said, I come to my family's out of town and I come to just about all these appointments by myself. What stage am I? I don't remember. And so she looked it up and she said, well, you're stage 3. And she said, we kind of call that a stage 3 plus because it got into the lymph nodes, but it didn't hit another organ. So you're not stage 4. And so, yeah, that was kind of funny. That was 5 years ago. And I just know, okay, I didn't really know what most of that stuff meant anyway, but.
That shows you're smarter than they are.
Yeah.
I want to apologize for the noise in the background. I live in an apartment and they're replacing a floor and the people that I back up to.
No
So I
worries.
don't know when they're
I don't
gonna
even
put-
hear it.
Oh, good, good.
No.
Well, we have come up to our hour. And so I want to say I am greatly appreciative of our 4 panelists who answered our call when our original speaker was too ill to present. So thank you again to Pat and Cheryl and Maureen and Pete. Thank you so very much. Thank you for everybody who has joined us. We had some wonderful active discussion today. I'm greatly appreciative of that. And I will be sending out a SurveyMonkey evaluation